Hi again. This is session number 5 in our series, a series which I think is now going to run to 8. So this is number 5 of 8, and I want to talk about generosity. One thing that the Bible is pretty consistent about is encouraging generosity. But please do hear this in the context of what I said previously about being good stewards and about counting the cost. In the Old Testament, in Psalm 37, it says this: I was young and now I am old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. They are always generous and lend freely. Their children will be blessed. Psalm 112 says, good will come to him who is generous and lends freely. Proverbs 11, one man gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous man will prosper. Proverbs 22, verse 9, a generous man will himself be blessed. You get the message. It goes on, and there are numerous references to generosity in the scriptures. My favourite example or illustration of that is found in Exodus chapter 36. Now, previously the people had rebelled against God, but they repented and they embarked on a project to build a place of worship. And they were encouraged to bring, as a free will offering to God, anything out of their assets: gold, wealth, material, fabrics, all sorts of things. And we read in Exodus 36 verse 5 that the craftsman said to Moses, the people bring much more than enough for doing the work the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses gave a command, and word was proclaimed throughout the camp: let no man or woman do anything more for the contribution of the sanctuary. You've given us enough. Stop giving, please. We've got too much. I'd love to be heading up a building project like that. That would be amazing. Over in the New Testament, generosity is encouraged. And to 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1, Paul is writing to the Corinthian church and says, brothers, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. A combination of poverty and joy. That's a hard concept for us to get our heads around, isn't it? How can you be joyous about at the same time as being poor? But out of it came generosity. And he goes on and says, I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability, entirely on their own. You see, Paul holds up the Macedonian church as an example to all for their generosity beyond their ability. Now, it's one thing to be generous with what you can afford, with the bit that's left over from after meeting all of your needs. It's another to be generous beyond what you can afford. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6 says this: remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. God loves a cheerful giver. That word cheerful is where we get our word hilarious from. So laughing all the way to the offering plate, it's amazing. And we'll be talking a little bit more about sowing and reaping later on. But Jesus' own teaching on generosity is found in Luke chapter 6. And he says this: give to everyone who asks. Whoever takes, do not demand it back. Lend, expecting nothing in return. Give, and it will be given to you. And now here's the crunch line: by your own standard of measure, it will be measured to you. What is my standard of measure? You see, the polar opposite of generosity is exploitation. How do we come about our wealth? Are we making our money out of those that can't afford it, or are we ourselves the victim of exploitation? What do I mean by that? Things like payday loan schemes, extortionate interest rates on credit cards, a global scale where prices are just going through the roof. Third world debt. There are so many different scenarios where we feel exploitation is happening. But if we want to receive generosity, we have to go back in the opposite spirit and be generous. If we want the world to become a more generous place, then we, as God's people, are the ones that have to model it first. So I want to encourage you to look at your attitude towards finance and your attitude towards the things that you have and view it with generosity